Alright, what's up YouTube? We're back with a video. Now, SEGA cannons, 60s and 90s. The argument, which one is better? Evidence! Da 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 da! Evidence! Right, evidence. Paper evidence. I don't have I sit there with a tally chart, a fucking Excel. I'm not an Excel nerd. I'm not going to sit there fucking putting sheets on the page, on the paper. Right, so, we can do this. Right, let's do this for the purpose of the vid. Right, 1 sec. Let's get this. Right, so let's add this into the fucking into the video, yeah? Alright, calculator. Here we go. Right, so the damage that is being displayed on these cannons is 100% correct. For anyone who's sitting there saying, oh well, people get thrown off by the KE damage of the weapons. Right, that's what I think Yujiko said. Now, the KE damage on the guns is correct. The bastards do 2,000 damage. Now, I'm going to explain the bases first. Because, the bases. Right, base dropping. When it comes to base dropping. Now, someone's going to say, oh, wow, dude, we want to know which splash does more fucking damage, 60s and the 90s. Okay. We get it, right? We know that's what we're getting into. But we need to say this first. So, for example, this is exactly what we're going to explain. Right. So, the 60s on the SEGA cannons takes... We'll do this. Right, let's do this just for jokes. Right, let's do this. Right, so, it takes 20 shots. Yeah? 20 shots to kill a base with 60s on an SEGA. Right. Now, it takes 20 shots with a 90 ammo on the SEGAs to drop a base. Right, this is base dropping. Right, now some people don't like losing to base dropping. It's something that is part of the game, and if you fail to protect your base, then this is a way that you can lose, and it's just as simple as that. If you go in a game, you should always cover the options of losing each and every single way. You lose by hands, you lose by killing the base, you lose by catching comms. It's as simple as that, right? If you force someone, if you get pressure on someone's base and they fall back and you pressure them into killing their base and they have to rush you before their base dies, well then that's something that's part of the game, and you got to accept if you lose by that. Right, now, bastards! Yeah? The best gun in the game. Yeah? Best fucking single gun in the game. Right, now, I'm still going to say that because it's true. Right? It is true. The evidence I found is true. Right, so, if you're going to drop a base with 60s on the bastards, it will take you 15 shots. 15 trigger pulls it will take to drop the base. Right, now, if you use 90s, it will take you 12 shots to drop the base. That's 3 trigger pulls less. So you are literally dropping the base in like a minute 12 with 90s, right? So that is real fast. That's literally as fast as a pile hand is dropping your fucking base, right? So don't forget that bastards have 57 ammo and you only need 12 shots to drop a base. So if you don't lose all your guns, you've got 45 rounds to fucking fire, right? Blow them everywhere. 45 rounds, like, you get an end to the end of the game where you got 12 rounds after you need to drop the base, you can drop the base, right? So it's a better build. It's a better hand, right? So, now, we're going to talk about splash damage. Someone sent me a message earlier and said that the idea that 60s were better, right? So 60s were better, right? So this is what they do, more damage at the feet. So I'm like, okay, 60s at the feet do more damage. Okay, let's test this. Right, 60s at the feet is correct. They do more damage at the feet, yeah? Landing them at the feet. Now, I'm going to go into why, right? This is not always a variable when you're landing them at the feet of the individual player that is playing the game. Because let's say, for example, someone's hiding behind a hill. You're behind a hill, they have a stick. The stick runs up the hill, pokes his guns over, shoots you, runs back down. If you land the 60s on top of the hill, the 60s don't have a blast radius, so they're not going through the hill and stripping the guy on the other side. Now, what I'm going to explain is the heightness of the guns has an effect on the 60 rounds. So if you're playing against the stick, you're playing against a stick sniper, You're playing against the AR nader with his fucking nades right at the top because they're weaker and they're really fucking high. Yeah? The 60s have less of an effect on the guy's guns. Now I'm going to explain why, and you know, we're going to get into this, right? And I'm going to type the numbers in on the fucking, the bit on the side, on the calculator so you can see it, right? So, we tested 60s with the Asifas, right? Now, the bastards rip the guns off a lot faster with 60s at the feet. Now, don't forget, when I'm doing this, I'm pointing my hand down and I'm shooting directly at the floor. Now, if you're playing against somebody, they're not in this specific position, so it's going to be, you know, the guns are higher up, they're stood straight, you know, the damage is not going to be, it's not going to be reaching them. On the Asifas, it doesn't reach them. Now, I'm going to show you why, because I wrote on this fucking piece of paper, untouched. And this is splash at max range. They untouched. So the generator, which is on the top of the bastard, right, and the fucking AR and the nade was unaffected by splash damage at the 60s at max range. It wasn't even hitting them, yeah? On the bastards, it was, right? So this is what I mean. This is why, for everyone who keeps saying this, Asifas are better, you know, how do you play? Is your play preference better? How do you play the hand, right? Because it's down, in my eyes, it could be down to the player or whoever's behind the hand. You know, the variables could implement on who wins, right? So, with the Asifa 60s, it takes 8 shots at point blank to blow the fucking grenade off, right? Now, using the 90s, it takes 11 shots to blow the grenade off, right? So, now, 3, 6, right? So you do this, yeah? So you do this. 3, 6, 9, right? That's 3, 6, 9. In the third volley, the gun comes off. The nade comes off. If this is direct at the feet with the Asifa. Now, 3, 6, 9 plus 3, which is 12, right? So, 12. So, 3, 6, 9, 11, 12. The fourth shot rips the nade off. Now, this is with the 60s and the 90s, right? I literally have it wrote down on a piece of paper, right? Now, the no-billy, yeah? To blow the no-billy, it takes 11 shots, right? This was the test build. This is how I tested it. And go test it with your friends. Go fucking create a game. You know, go in a free battle unlimited and sit there and start fucking shooting each other, right? Go test it yourself, yeah? Go test it. You'll find, you know, go test direct impacts. I haven't got anyone, you know, to shoot, right, in a trial sortie to test direct impacts. So, you know, for example, direct impacts with a bastard at 2000 KE damage is fucking you up. I don't care what anybody says. Now, if anyone says, like, you know, there's that specific guy in Chromehounds that hates me or don't like me, he's the most paranoid individual, everyone knows who he is by now, you know, my most hated individual I've never liked on the game, right? Basically, he said, well, why would you use these? Because directing them is difficult. It isn't, because Farquaad did it on the game. Now, Farquaad is going to turn out to be one of them players that is going to become good. If he controls his frustration, he's literally going to be one of the best players that I've seen even into today's date of people that are playing the game. It doesn't matter, right? It's inevitable that it's going to happen because he's literally, it's how I was in the beginning, right? So, 3, 6, 9, 12, right? So, you know, this is 12. So on the fourth, this is with 60s, yeah? So 60s Asifas blow off the nobly in 11 shots. So that's 3, 6, 9, 12, 11, boom, is before 12. So, you know, that's, yeah, obviously it's before 12. Do you know what I mean? Like, people do maths, right? So the nobly with the 90s, it takes 12 pops, which is 1 extra to blow the generator off. Now, with the 60s on the Asifa, you will strip another Asifa in 7 rounds. So you will blow an Asifa cannon off an Asifa hand in 7 rounds. With, you know, so 3, 6, 9, 7, obviously is the third round, because you're firing 3 at once. I did this test as 1 shot at a time, right? This is how we did this, so we can't get an unbiased fucking thing where one hand, you know, one round shoots off randomly somewhere else, right? So Asifa's 90s on the 60s page, right, is, you know, say for example 3, 6, 9, 12, it's gone. It takes an extra volley. So 90s take an extra volley to rip the guns off of the hand of the Asifas. Now, if you're playing against a stick, now a stick don't get touched by the 60 splash the higher the guns are at max range. So if they're running and you shoot and the 60s hit and it clips them on the maximum range, the guns that are high in the air aren't getting touched by the splash damage, right? You know, we tested this. This is the evidence. You know, I'm presenting the evidence, right? This video is going to be long, right? It's just the way it is, right? So, the AR, to blow that AR off, and that's not, I wouldn't say that is this is as high, like, if we go, so we think, right, now, you know, if we removed all these and put, like, let's just say this, right? Let's just change this to a pair of fucking knackers, right? No, Jamal's already the fucking same, but right now that's higher. That's higher up, right? So you're not actually hitting, which is fucking crazy because you imagine that. You say, wait, so we'll change it back, right? You know, so on the treads, it's not even hitting the 60 splash. It's not even hitting the fucking top of the heart, right? And the knackers are higher, right? So you know, you think you're doing less. Right, why the fucking hell did the fuck happened here, bro? Why did that go like that? Right, so basically, you know, the hand is higher up when it's on knackers and the splash isn't hitting them. So, you know, so it takes 9 shots to rip off the AR at 60s with their feet, right? So 9 shots, right? So that's 3, 6, 9 with the 60s, yeah? With the 90s, it takes 11, right? So the variables are if, you know, someone's behind a hill, you're hitting them with 60s, or the 60s going through the hill, depending on where the guy is standing behind the hill. This is why 90s are better, right? 90s are better, in my opinion, every single way, just from the testing that I've found, right? I didn't sit here for 2 hours to make a unbiased video that the 60s are not as good as, you know, the fucking 90s. Now, to land the 60s, you have to land the 60s at their feet every single time to get the more damage. Now, in situations where, you know, you're on, say, Albury Coal Mine, or you're on Pamak Mine, and you're getting rushed by a bunch of AR naders, and you're sat on the hill with an Asifa, you know, and you're firing down at them, maybe this is the case. So certain maps, you might want to change to 60s over 90s, but depending on the team, right? Because, like I say, if they run the stick, you're fucked with the 60s, yeah? Because you're not hitting, at max range, you ain't damaging their high guns. Only with 90s you are, right? So this is what we found. This is what we found out, right? So, the Asifas. So Asifas are 9 on the AR, right? 90s are 11, right? So, bastard cannons. The OG guns of the game. More durable, more power, right? It's inevitable that these things are fucking brilliant. Right, so 60s, we're talking about 60s right now. So to run off 60s, you need 7 trigger pulls to blow the nade, right? Now, you know, on the Asifas, you need 8. So we're in the 3rd round, no matter what, you're ripping the nades off. The nades are coming off, right? So, the 8 trigger pulls with the 60s to blow the no billy off with the bastards, and it takes 11 with the Asifas with 60s. So the bastards are clearly doing more damage. Right, now, to blow the bastard cannon off with 60s, they are more durable by 510 points, right? So, you know, that's 9 shots, right? With the Asifas, with 60s, it takes 7 to blow the Asifa off, right? Now, the bastards obviously are more durable, so they take more damage, right? So, for example, to blow off the AR with the 60s with the bastards, it takes 10, right? So, with the 60s, with the 90s, no, with the 60s on their, you know, the Asifas, it takes 9 to blow the AR off, right? Which is a bit odd, right? Because, you know, they're taking less, it's taking less damage from that on the Asifa side than it is the bastard. So, you know, against the no billy, you know, maybe it's something to do with the fucking durability, I don't know, right? So, the bastard. Now, to blow, we blew the bastard off, right? So, let's say, for example, now, the 90s with the bastards, right? So now we're going to go to the 90s with the bastards, right? The bastard is 11 shots to pull the nade off, right? So originally with the 60s it's 7, so 11, right? 7, 11, you know, 3, 6, 9. Yeah? 12. That's the nade's gone. The fucking the nade's gone. Right? Boom. So it's an extra trigger pull. Right. So you've got the generator. The generator is 8 shots with the 60s, right? With the to blow the nobly, right? Now with the 90s, it takes 13, right? 13 to blow with the 90s. This is at your feet. Now with the 90s at your feet, they don't work like that. If you're next to a wall, you're hitting them, the ricochet is kicking them off, it's spinning their hand around. Now, for example, an AR nader. An AR nader really should never be a bastard hand because a bastard can fire one cannon at once. Fire 1, 1, 1. And if you do that and spin him, and constantly spin him as he's trying to reset, you will keep him stuck in a position and he will not be able to move. You fire one at a time at him, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Because by the time you get round to the third round, the other one's reloaded, tap the trigger, bap, 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 boom, you strip him, you rip all his fucking guns off, you can't do shit, right? Because of the rotation spin, right? So, the bastards with the 60s to blow the bastard gun off the cannon is a 9 shots. With the, with the 90s, it's 15, right? So the 60s on the bastards do more damage if you're landing them at their feet. Yes, correct. Whoever said this, is correct, right? So 10 ARs, with the 60s, it takes 10 shots with the bastards to blow the ARs off with the 10, right? Now, with the ARs on the Asifas, 60s, it takes 9. So, for some reason, the bastard takes 1 extra shot to blow the AR off only on the AR, which, I don't know. Maybe it's a glitch with the durability or something, or I don't know. Something's a bit odd with that bit, right? But it takes 1 extra pull, right? So, now, with the bastards, with the 90s ripping off the... With the 90s ripping off the AR, with the bastards and 90s, it takes 15 rounds, right? Now, with the ARs on the Asifa side, it's 11, right? So, the Asifa wins on the AR build, right? It wins against the ARs. Now, could we test this? I could go back and test this if you guys want me to go back and test this, and I'll put, let's say an SC200 on the top of this hand, and I'll do the maths and run the video, and test it and write it all down, which one blows each one off faster, then, I can do that, right? If you want that, I'll do that, right? So, now, at max range, when you're firing these guns and you're hitting them on the very end of the splash, right? It takes 21 shots with the 60s, with the Asifas, to blow off the Asifa gun, right? That's hitting them with the 60s right on the edge of the cannon. Now, at that moment in time, with a high up hand stick, the ARs were untouched, the no-billy was untouched, and the nade was untouched with the 60s. So it proves that if the hand is high off the ground, the 60s are not hitting them. Now, so let me explain something. I haven't tested this on knackers, right? I did this on meads, right? With the knackers, we might have a different result. It might not hit the guns, so the higher the guns are up, the harder it is to rip the hand's guns off with 60s, at max range splash. This probably will take another video to get this correct, to get it right, but it is what it is. Now, max range 60s on the max range, so this is max range, so I draw the line here, right? So max range with the 60s, is it the 90s? So the max range with the 90s, right? Because obviously the 60s are not touching the weapons, right, at max range. So max range splash, the guns are unaffected, right? So with the bastards, it takes 30 shots to rip the guns off, right? So 30 shots. So these are the numbers. So you got 27, 30, 31, and 32, right? That's at max range 90 splash to rip the guns off. That's completely stripping this fucking build, and your cockpit's fucked anyway, right? So the thing is, at max range splash damage, right, the bastards are still beating the Asifa hand. You hitting them right on the edge, so like you're maximally out of range. You know that you're firing them over and they're running away. They see them coming in and they come down, bow, and you're catching them right on the edge. It takes a lot of shots to strip them, but the 60s on the Asifas are not doing any damage. They're not doing any damage max range. With the bastards, they are. So the bastards, obviously, you are not playing by yourself. You have other people in the game with you. So if someone's getting sniped, you know, and your sniper's hitting their hands and damaging their builds, then obviously, you know, this is what happens with, you know, the 90s or the better splash to fucking rip the guns off. It's just the way it is, right? So, for right now, my conclusion is, if you're playing against sticks, people that are playing against thick hills, which it's hard to, you know, get the shots, like, say, right on top. Now, let's say, for example, you have a fucking triple-double, right? Let's say, for example, you have a triple-double, right? No one uses a triple-double, you know, they're for base ranging. That's what they're for. There was, back in the day, don't nuke them, and, you know, before you started using rockets, he'd fucking triple-double you and shoot them over your head, you know, and say, range your base. Now, if you're ranging the base, you want 90s. You want 90s because, you know, you're hitting the base. You want to direct hit the base. So as if you can get them things firing as close as together as possible, you hit the base, you're doing more damage to the base, right? So, you know, STM Vindictive, I think it was in that chat, right? Basically, you know, listening to Farquad's stream, you know, because his voice is so fucking, you know, you can recognize him from so long ago. Like, I knew it was him, and I can't even see the fucking who's in the chat. Like, you know, so he said the grouping on the Asifas is better, right? Yeah, yes. At this moment in time, with the old builds on Xbox, yes, they are better. But you can get the bastards firing the same as that with, you know, the roto, right? The roto with the flip cockpit. Now, if they change the flip cockpit, then maybe the Asifas will technically still be the better hand because you've got the roto. But because you can use the roto with the bastards, it still makes that better. Now, it's a long video, but right now for the specific testing, the 90s are still proving to be the better use of hand, right? Unless you're landing them at the feet. But then landing them at the feet depends on the map, where they're playing, who you're playing against, what stick builds they're running, how high are the knackers. Now, realistically, I should put this hand on knackers and fire the guns at the floor and see if, you know, with the Asifas and the bastards, to see which one is ripping the guns off. So that's my end of my video. This is fucking long. This is a thing hard to explain. You know, this is something that, you know, you can either look into yourself or whatever. But as right now of the calculator, right, the bastards with the 60s rip your guns off faster than the Asifas. With the 90s, they take one extra round with the bastards to take your guns off over the Asifas, right? So the Asifas with 90s will rip your guns off, you know, in one less volley than the bastards, but the bastards have higher radius, so if you're hitting them on the hill, the splash is going through the hill. Just for example, like a double-double. A double-double fires at the hill, they got 90s, it's stripping them through the hill because of the power. The splash is running through, the shockwave is going through the hill with the higher power radius, where if they're on the very edge and you're running 60s, they might not get hit. And if their hand's tall, they won't get hit from the splash. So this is what I've come to. You know, if you want the video with the SC200, I'm going to fuck around and run some pieces of paper and test this SC200 and, you know, see what a conclusion is, and I'll post a video regarding that. I think I'm just going to go ahead and fucking do it anyway. But thanks for watching this video. If you did watch it, you know, make a comment, fucking let me know that, you know, the conclusion is that these are better at the moment. They still are better, right? Peace.